Vuyo Mvoko is at the ANC Lekgotla. Let's cross to him now for an update. Vuyo, just walk us through some of the conversations that have either taken place or are likely to be taking place in this very, very important occasion for the ANC in Gauteng.
Thanks, Hugo. Well, from a briefing I got a short while ago, they are about to wrap up now. There were three speakers who still had to give report backs to the closed plenary before, of course, we are called in for that open session where Panyaza Lesufi, the co-convener, will, of course, close this two-day Lekgotla with, of course, a wrap giving us a sense of what would have transpired over the past couple of days. But here to talk us through briefly what to expect is, of course, the official spokesperson of the ANC here in the province, Mzi Khumalo. Mzi, a very warm welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Take us through, if you will, what has been happening, what happened overnight, and what has been happening today.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. The first thing that we want to say, we regard this as the most successful Lekgotla of the ANC since the establishment of the PTT. If you recall, we had to postpone this Lekgotla for several times in order to ensure that at a point when we sit down, we put together a program that all our structures will follow. The second part is that for the last 2 days, we are working on a 12-month program. If you remember, we have, in terms of the constitution, we have 9 months, but we want to work on the 12-month program, which between ourselves and the NEC, we will then make assessment of and decisions insofar as matters that relate to conferences will then be taken at that point in time. The third level of it is that for the last 2 days, the first part of it we received because we want to ensure that we are aligned to the national priorities. We received a program with specific targets and activities coming from the national head office. At the core of it, it's the whole question of rebuilding and renewing. Rebuilding, in particular, underpinned by the fact that we want to connect, we want branches of the ANC that would connect with the people. Because the key question we had to ask ourselves is, are branches of the ANC, for instance, call what we call community meetings? And part of the assessment we came on is that no, they are not calling for community meetings. To that extent, we feel that the ANC has moved away from the people, not that the people have moved away from the ANC. We also received a report around the research, where we scanned the environment to try and understand what are the concerns of the people, particularly after the election itself. And what came out very clear there is that you've got issues of service delivery. Our people are saying, please implement. You theorized a lot, you put plans a lot. We want you to implement. To that extent, we resolved that we're going to put together a strong intergovernmental forum where we're putting together all the resources of the provincial government, of national government, of local government, and the agencies that exist in order to focus on the basics that we need to do. We've got to maintain the roads. We've got to ensure that we close the potholes that are there. We've got to ensure that all our communities have got water. We've got to ensure that our communities have got electricity. Gone should be the days of transformers that are bursting, transformers that get lost, and all of those kind of things. The last part of it is that we've got to strengthen the whole question of fighting against crime. Included in that is the GBV campaign that we've got to strengthen. Those are some of the issues that came out very clear, and those are the issues that we've got to work on. And then thereafter, there was commissions that dealt with a number of issues, from education to sports to the economy, to the battle of ideas, to governance, to local government. But also linked to that process of governance, because part of the task that we have as PTT is to monitor both the provincial government and the local government insofar as their performance is concerned. So what we did now, we received the report, we analyzed what's happening at the local government level, we analyze what's happening at a provincial level. Remember, this is Lekgotla. Strategic decisions will then be made by the PTT, whether you
informed by what will have gone on over the
yes,
past
yes.
couple of days. Let's leave it there for now. Mzi Khumalo is, of course, the spokesperson of the ANC in Gauteng, taking us through what they have been discussing since yesterday. And in a short while, the co-convener of the provincial task team of the ANC, who is also, of course, the premier of the province, Panyaza Lesufi, who will give that report back and will close the two-day Lekgotla, but not before giving us a sense of how they are going to move, how they are going to implement the things that Mzi Khumalo was talking about. For now, though, it's back to you in studio, Hugo.
We're not going to let you go so easily. There's so many questions that arise. I mean, Mzi Khumalo is talking about transparency, improved service delivery, etc. You know, just how much willpower is there for the ANC, and in your view, from what you're understanding, to carry these things out? Because none of this is rocket science. It is the expectation of voters, it is the expectations of the people of Gauteng that these things should actually be happening without it or any of it being part of a bigger strategy.
Well, certainly from the speech that Panyaza Lesufi gave yesterday, it's not rocket science, really. It's the need for the ANC to actually go back to the basics. As you cannot have public appeal if you're not going to give people water, electricity, if the cities are dirty, if people believe that you have a devil-may-care attitude. And these are not things, in fact, I dare say, these things don't even need research. These are issues that people raise on a daily basis. And one of the examples that he gave yesterday was saying, comrades, I don't understand how you're going to undertake trips to countries like Switzerland, saying you want to go and mobilize resources, get investment. But people are not going to invest where there's no water, if your streets are dirty, if they believe that you are corrupt. So it's basic things like those. But how then the ANC hopes to address these issues going forward is, of course, what we will hear from Panyaza Lesufi when he makes those concluding remarks. But with that, of course, he needs to come up, or the ANC needs to come up with an analysis of why I think these things that are commonsensical were not happening or didn't happen in the first place, which of course was a big contributor to how the ANC performed dismally during those May 29 elections last year, polling a paltry 34%. The lowest it has ever polled since 1994. So we'll hear from them as to how indeed they are going to be addressing or dealing with these issues going forward.
Vuyo, if I could maybe pick your brain, or you could potentially pick Mzi Khumalo's brain around the approach for the ANC in KZN. Speaking to an analyst a little bit earlier, he seems to think that Jeff Radebe is out of his depth in KZN, particularly when you draw parallels to the MK party and former president Jacob Zuma in that area. Just how much of a challenge do they think changing the minds of voters in KZN is going to be?
Let's bring him in. Again, really the question Hugo is asking, he cites the example of KwaZulu-Natal, which is in a similar position. I mean, the two provinces performed dismally in the elections last year, raising fears, of course, that it's going to go south from here. In other words, going to get worse instead of getting better. And that really, the question is, what do you have? What do you have that which you are going to be able to use, which you haven't used before, or which you haven't done before? Hugo is citing as an example the fact that Jeff Radebe, an analyst that we spoke to not too long ago, was saying, look, bring in Jeff Radebe, bring in anyone, just like a PTT was brought in. Amos Masondo is in the mix, Hope Papo is in the mix. But what are these people going to do? What have you been able to do in the months that the PTT was put in place that gives some sort of a guarantee that you are indeed on your way to mending your ways?
The first thing is that since the coming in of the PTT is that we've got a better organization in Gauteng, a better coordinated organization in Gauteng. If you look at the several activities that we've been having, for instance, the fact that we're able to meet with the regions, we're able to meet with all the mayors. Most importantly, you have policy units that are functional, and those policy units have invited expert people who are participating in those particular policy units. For instance, I'm serving in the policy units of local government. I can tell you we've done quite a lot of work there. We've met with all the trackers of the municipalities. We are now focusing on service delivery matters of Emfuleni local municipality.
Why couldn't you do that before? In other words, what stopped the things you have done from happening before?
Look, it's a question of leadership at a given time. For instance, if you go to the branches of the ANC, the Constitution tells you of what a branch should be doing. Amongst the things that the Constitution emphasizes, that a branch must be able to call a public meeting or community meeting. But that has not happened at all. And it's a question of leadership. Even in the province, we face the same challenge. That is why, amongst others, we were the first one to accept the fact that these foundational costs are important. Because sometimes, as leaders, you think we've been here for long, we know too much, and so on, and only to find that you forgot the basics.
But it also probably it should point out to you that perhaps your system of electing people is fundamentally flawed. Because here you are, part of a provincial task team that has actually been imposed on top of elected people. In other words, you've probably become more populist. You've attracted people who are unable or are not keen even to do the actual work. Now you've had to handpick people to come and do things that should be done routinely by elected representatives, isn't it?
One of the concerns which forms part of the resolution that came out of this house, Lekgotla, was exactly how the manner in which, as the African National Congress, we electing leaders. And the meeting bemoaned...
And those leaders you then get to impose on South Africans.
And sometimes those people are rejected by the same South African population that you. So, but one of the issues that came out here, people were bemoaning the usage of money in the African National Congress. That's the biggest enemy, and also the issues of slate politics or factionalism. What are the implications of these two? The usage of money. You end up with a person that necessarily this person is not a leader, but because they had money, they've been elected, and now they are not living up, they are not equal to the task. But also the slate politics, you end up with a collective that is disjointed, that is not complementing each other. as such.
We may not even like each other, because of the campaign.
And the delegates were like, no, we must change the manner in which we elect leaders in the ANC.
That's why we're going to leave it for now. Mzi Khumalo, the spokesperson of the ANC here in Gauteng. In a moment, we are told we are going to be called in for that closing session, Hugo, which will be, of course, addressed by the co-convener of the ANC's provincial task team here in Gauteng, and that's Panyaza Lesufi. Hugo?